Atelier Iris 2, the Azoth of Destiny, despite being second in the Atelier Iris series, is actually a prequel to its predecessor, Atelier Iris Eternal Mana. Atelier Iris 2, like its predecessor, is a turn-based RPG set in the fantasy world centered around the concept of alchemy. For starters, the visuals in Atelier Iris 2, much like the previous game, uses 3D environments and 2D sprites. The style is very reminiscent to older PS1 RPGs like Grandia, Breath of Fires 3 and 4, and Xenogears. However, since this is a PS2 game, it does look more polished by comparison. However, if you are a fan, like I am, of this style of graphics, it's hard not to be swept up by the game's undeniable charm. The environments themselves, for the most part, aren't terribly interesting, but the sprites themselves are very colorful, bright, and nice to look at. The sprites look even nicer during combat, as they have more detail and are in motion. When characters are talking, the game uses nicely drawn portraits for all the important characters in the plot. These portraits change and reflect what the characters are saying, which is a nice bit of immersion to add to the game. The game also sports some fully animated cutscenes here and there as well. These are sprinkled nicely and definitely are enjoyable to watch for those who like anime. The music in this game is pretty quirky and nice to listen to. The range is also pretty good as well, as there's never really a time where the music felt like it played at an inappropriate time. If something was funny, then the music would reflect that, and if it was getting serious, the music would follow suit. The music does a good job of complementing the game, as it's not very obtrusive and doesn't really take you out of the experience. For the voice acting, I thought it was pretty good overall. Interestingly enough, the main character was voiced by Spike Spencer of Evangelion fame. However, I have to say that Mona Marshall's portrayal of Poe stole the show, as she made an already funny character even more fun to watch. However, if you're a purist, the game has Japanese audio available as well. The story of Atelier Iris 2 takes place many years before the events of the first game. It follows our main protagonists, Felt and Visé Blanchimont. Felt and Visé live in the world of Eden as up-and-coming alchemists. However, Felt is a naturally talented alchemist, but he doesn't really have an interest in it, while Visé does. Felt prefers just to practice his swordsmanship instead. However, one day disaster strikes their precious home, and Felt is forced away from his childhood friend to an unknown world in order to fix the crumbling Eden. Visé stays behind, using her alchemy skills to make items and sends them to Felt, and to aid him in his quest. Overall, the story is pretty simple for the most part, and I would say that the writing was definitely stronger in the previous game, for both the story and the characters. I'm not trying to say that the story was bad or that the characters are no good in this game, just that they were a bit better written than the first game. However, an issue I certainly do have is that the main character Felt does not get enough development. We really don't get to know him too well in the game, as he doesn't really get enough screen time in terms of the plot. This isn't to say that he's irrelevant to the plot, just that some delving into his character would have been a big plus. Luckily, this is not an issue with the other characters in the story. They all get a decent and reasonable amount of development. The cast in general are a likable bunch, and you get to know them pretty well throughout the story. The combat in Atelier Iris 2, like I said before, is turn-based, but this utilizes an active time battle system just like the Grandia series. I say Grandia specifically because the position of the enemy on the active time battle bar can determine whether or not you can either push back an enemy's turn or cancel out an attack of theirs entirely. This opens up another layer of strategy to the game, and it's a nice addition to the combat that was absent in the previous game. However, something interesting in this game is that there is no actual MP bar, but each character shares a single skill bar. The more the characters hit or get hit, the more the bar in the upper right corner will fill up, and the counter will keep going up as well. This is used by all the characters and will allow them to use different skills. Since this is shared by all the characters, if Felt uses an ability that costs 2, for example, while the counter is at 3, The other characters previously could have used skills, they used up 2 or 3 slots, but now they can only use a skill that uses 1 until they fill it up some more. This works well in making the players think ahead, and mostly comes into play in the boss fights. The game also sports a great alchemy system. Since Feld is running around in the world of Velkai, Vise makes items for him in Eden and sends them over to him. It's a fairly easy process even though it's required by the game in order to progress. It never feels too complicated or intimidating. Other than the alchemy itself in the game, Feld can use his blacksmithing skills in order to create and forge weapons. These weapons have skills attached to them, and these skills can be learned by the characters wielding them. After you fight in a certain amount of battles, you get these points, and these points can be put into these different skills and again can be permanently learned by the characters. This is a nice incentive in the game to make your characters more proficient in battle, other than just simply leveling them up normally. I think it's overall a nice feature and definitely adds more to the game. I also want to add that this game has a journal in it that has a basic summary of what has happened up to that point in the story. Seriously, all RPGs need this. How many times has it been, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, to where they leave an RPG alone when they're halfway through, come back to it, and suddenly forget what they were doing and what they had to do next. A journal system like this, which is also present in the Tales series, is very necessary in order for gamers to get up to speed to what they were doing when they were previously playing the game, and it's greatly appreciated that this game uses it. Another cool feature in this game is the encounter meter. When the meter starts changing colors, it means it becomes more likely to be thrust into battle. And whenever you complete a battle, the bar empties a little bit, to the point where eventually it's empty and you can simply walk around without getting into any battles, which is definitely a neat feature. One last thing, leveling in the first game, the stats were randomized, and there were times where a character would level up and no stats would go up. That was just infuriating. However, this issue has been fixed in this sequel. I would have to say that in general, the gameplay is a big improvement over the predecessor. It fixes some issues and improves upon the gameplay altogether. Overall, Atelier Iris 2 is a very solid RPG. It's a fun game that's easy to get into. The story is simple, but the characters are charming. The graphics are a bit dated by today's standards, but they're still colorful and vibrant. The music is nice, voice acting ain't that bad. Overall, it's a solid game. If you've been itching for a good old turn-based RPG that's a bit of a throwback to older style games, give Atelier Iris 2 a shot. This has been Shintai, everyone. Take it easy.